Good afternoon. Welcome to the Army MAPS IDIQ Opportunity Webinar held by GDI Consulting. My name is Cal, and I am your Artificial Intelligence host today. With me is Ab Vand, VP for Capture at GDI Consulting and a subject matter expert on these opportunities. Ab has over 30 years of experience in capture and proposal management. He is considered an expert in self-scoring as well as traditional proposal and capture efforts. Ab has managed over 1,000 successful capture and proposal efforts and is a regular contributor to various online GovCon magazines. He has also held numerous training webinars for various APMP chapters and APEX, previously PTAC, offices throughout the U.S. Before starting, there are a few housekeeping notes I would like to mention. First, this webinar is being recorded and the link to the recording will be sent to you within 24 hours. Second, we will hold a Q&A session at the end. You can send your questions during the webinar by the chat system to the right of your window and Ab will address them at the end. Third, you can download this presentation by clicking on the link under File on the right-hand side panel on your window. We highly recommend you download the slide deck so that you can always refer back to it. So let's see what this webinar covers. We will first have a quick glimpse on GDI Consulting's capabilities. Then, a short discussion of the background of MAPS, which consists of two other contracts, the RS3 and ITES-3S programs. Then Ab will provide some general details of the MAPS opportunity, as well as its domains. Next will come a discussion of the proposal structure and the minimum requirements. The scoring system will be then covered in detail. Ab will also discuss the source selection process, and touch on the subject of partnering for this opportunity. Finally, before going into the Q&A, Ab will provide his recommendations towards preparing a winning proposal. So with that, I will now hand over the control to Ab to start the webinar. Ab?
Hello everyone, and thank you for participating in our webinar. As Cal mentioned, we highly recommend that you download the slide deck so you can refer back to it. In case you're having difficulty downloading it, just put your name and email on the chat system and we'll email you the slide deck in the PDF format. Okay, so before we go into the MAPS webinar itself, let me very quickly, for those of you who are new to our webinars, explain very quickly about GDI Consulting. So we've been in business for over 15 years and we are a premier experts on self-scoring proposals. Just to give you an idea, we had 97 awards on Oasis Plus with a 98% win rate. So 97 clients actually were awarded for the proposals that we prepared for them. As far as the MAPS is concerned, actually we had 4 wins on RS3, 3 small business, 1 large, and 7 wins on ITES-3S, 5 small business and 2 large previously. And MAPS obviously is the combination of these two, merger of these two. I will not go into details of these numbers here. You can always refer back to this later on. Now, in terms of services we provide, there are 4 major services we provide: proposal development, capture management, support services, and training. In proposal development, we help companies prepare small proposals to very large, elaborate proposals for either task orders or standalone proposals or large-scale IDIQs and GWACs. We also do review and staff augmentation, staff placing. For those of you who have your own shop, your proposal shop, but you're missing a person, or you need a review, a second set of eyes. In terms of capture, we do both long-term capture, we call it dedicated capture management, as well as short-term sourcing and qualification finding opportunities that are out there. In addition to special programs for Oasis Plus, GSA Mass, and Seaport, monitoring the websites and coming up with best opportunities for our clients. And then we have a AI-enabled capture platform called Capture Edge. Many of our clients are using that. It's very economic, but it has almost all the capabilities of the major capture systems on it. Support services includes competitive intel, black hat exercises, and price to win, as well as accounting preparations for DCMA and DCAA audits, and supports such as, for example, CMMC certification support or ISO 9001 support, that sort of thing that many companies need. And finally, training for both proposal development, capture management. This is customized training based on your needs. We provide that. Okay, so that was very quickly going over our services. In terms of what we can actually provide for the MAPS IDIQ, we provide free consultation. So I will show you our contact info later on. You can always ask for a call and we will sit down with you, answer any questions that you have. It's all free. Eligibility and qualification assessment, and then CMMC and ISO certification support, as I mentioned. For those of you who want to go after this opportunity fully, we provide full proposal development. We take on everything on us, and we put a dedicated team to prepare your proposal, cradle to grave, and then full and multiple reviews. For those of you who have your own shops and are familiar with self-scoring proposals, we provide review services for review and compliance, and also strategy consultation. So these are the services we provide specific to MAPS. Okay, so let's start with MAPS, the main topic of our webinar. But before going into MAPS itself, let's look at the background for this opportunity. As you know, MAPS stands for Marketplace for Acquisition of Professional Services, and it's the result of merging two major U.S. Army programs, the RS3 and the ITES-3S, into one contract. Now, RS3 answers towards the requirements of C5 ISR, that's Command Control Communication Computers, cyber, and then intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance. The ceiling value for RS3 is $37.4 billion, but approximately 10.1 has been obligated or spent so far. Current contract holders or incumbents are 261. For ITES-3S, its scope includes a full range of IT services and solutions necessary for the Army to satisfy its support for the Army enterprise infrastructure and infrastructure goals worldwide. The ceiling here is $12.1 billion. But here again, $4.3 billion have been spent or obligated so far, and there are 135 incumbents or awardees on ITES-3S. Okay, now let's dive a little bit more deeply into each of these. So let's start with RS3. So RS3 stands for Response Strategic Sourcing for Services. U.S. Army, obviously, IDIQ, Engineering, Scientific, and Technical Services. As I said, the ceiling is 37.4, but 10.1 has been obligated. It had an unrestricted and small business set aside, 261 awardees, 5 years base, and 1 5-year option starting from March 2019. Okay, now the tasks cover C4 ISR, engineering services, C4 ISR, research, development, test, and evaluation services, C4 ISR, logistics services, C4 ISR, acquisition and strategic planning services, and C4 ISR, education and training services. So these are the tasks under RS3. Now, if you look at the spending trend during these years, you can see that it has been growing. It reached or went over the $1 billion. These numbers are in billions of dollars. Went over the $1 billion mark in 2020 and reached the $2 billion in 2025. So it's a healthy contract, and we expect to see the same in MAPS. Okay, now, as far as the agencies that are using this contract, it's essentially the Army. You can see that $9.7 billion was spent by the Army, and the DOW, the previous Defense DOD. DOW spent only $247 million and Air Force $146 million. So it is essentially a contract for the Army. the agency. Okay, now as far as the socioeconomic categories, they're listed here. So large businesses, $7.4 billion, and overall total small business or overall small business is 2.6 or $2.7 billion. Now, the other socioeconomic categories, you can see they're very small usually compared with the overall small business. So many total small businesses where you actually getting contracts under this RS3 contract. Okay, let's now discuss ITES-3S then. So US Army again, IDIQ MAC, information technology, $12.1 billion. That's ceiling, it seems to be. Both unrestricted and small business pools or tracks it has. 135 awardees, 52 unrestricted, and 83 small businesses have been awarded. 5-year base plus 4 1-year options. Okay, now here is the spending trend here. So again, this one is also a growing one, but it's smaller compared to RS3. It hasn't reached the $1 billion threshold yet. So in 2024 and 2025, it was just shy a little bit below $1 billion. So this is a healthy program as well, as you can see from that. This is used a little bit more than RS3, but still the Army is the major user, $3.2 billion, and then the rest are all in the millions. 465 for DOW, $465 million, 278 Air Force, and so on and so forth. Okay, and this is the spread of large and small, and as well as the socioeconomic categories. So 2.5 approximately billion dollars large businesses, 1.7 or 1.8 overall small businesses, and then you can see the spread of socioeconomic. You can see the numbers here compared to RS3 for specific socioeconomic categories are larger, like small disadvantage or women owned. They're much larger than the RS3, perhaps 3 times as large. Okay, that was the background. Let's now go into MAPS itself, the general information of MAPS. Obviously, it's by the US Army, engineering, scientific, technical, and IT services. Now, the value, they have said no ceiling. So based on the latest Q&A, they've said that there is no ceiling in terms of funding value. Set aside, it's both unrestricted and small business. Number of awards, 250, 50 for each domain. They've changed these from the previous drafts. So now 50 awards per domain, and they've said 15 to large businesses, 25 to small businesses, and 10 to vendors, commercial vendors. It's a new one. 10 contracts awards will go to commercial vendors, and I'll explain what those are later on. Now, contract duration is 10 years, 5-year base plus 1 5-year option. Full RFP release will be probably in May or June 2026. That's an estimate. An award probably in a fourth quarter of 2026, or even going into 2027. We'll have to see when they actually issue the RFP. Now, in terms of the domains under MAPS, there are 5 domains under MAPS: technical services, management and advisory services, RDT and E services, that's research, development, testing, and evaluation, emerging IT services, and then foundation IT services. Each of them have their own NAICS code and the size standard. I've put them here for your review, and also note that for each of them there are 50 awards, 15 large, 25 small business, and 10 commercial vendors. Okay, perhaps I should mention what commercial vendors are here. Commercial vendors are those companies who have not worked with the federal government for the past 3 years, don't have contracts with them, except for commercially, you can say off-the-shelf sort of products. So companies that sell, for example, prepared software or that sort of thing. So, you know, they don't do services or don't provide new stuff. They just sell. Either they haven't worked with the government at all, or if they have, they just sell what's prepared already in their line of, you know, equipment and products. So those are the commercial vendors that they're trying to work. So something like Google, you know, perhaps if I don't know about the other type of contracts that Microsoft might do, but things like, you know, Microsoft Windows and things like that, those fall under this kind of company, commercial vendors. Okay. Okay, now this timeline, except the red ones, is what they actually issued within the latest pre-solicitation meeting that was in January 28th. But later on, they issued a not an amendment, but a notice saying that it was supposed to be, as you can see, February 2nd, the solicitation release date, but they issued a memorandum saying that they have postponed everything to the second quarter of the year, next quarter. That's why we think sometime around May or June they will do it. And they have said that they're going to have another draft again. Another draft, probably receive response to that draft, and then the final RFP. So we'll have to see when it will actually come out. And then the proposal due date will shift whenever the full RFP drops, 1 month after that. And obviously the award will be between 3 to 6 months after the submission. So that's the new timelines I wanted you to understand. Okay, let's look at the proposal structure then now. So there are 6 volumes for this submission. Volume 1 is cover letter. Volume 2 is self-scoring scorecard that you fill out. Volume 3 is systems, agreements, and certifications. I will go into detail of these later, plus the documentation that you provide for them. Volume 4 is past performance. It's essentially the proof and information about what you actually scored yourself in Volume 2. So past performance in Volume 4 are the forms and documents and attached documents that you provide to justify the scoring in Volume 2. Volume 5 is cost. They haven't explained it yet. And then Volume 6 is small business subcontracting plan, which is only required from large businesses, and it's a written plan. The others, you just use those attachments that I've listed as your submission. Okay, now before going into the scoring system and other things, let's look at the minimum requirements, because this is called a gate criteria. Either you have it or you don't. If you don't have it, you cannot actually proceed with, you shouldn't actually proceed with your submission, spending time and money and everything and preparing your proposal, because if you don't have these, and they're going to check this criteria first, they're not going to look at the other parts of the proposal. If you don't have it, they're going to put aside your proposal. So for large businesses, you're supposed to have minimum secret facility clearance, ISO 9001, CMMC level 2, that's self-certification or higher, government accepted accounting system, government accepted purchasing system, and then CPARs, for the 5 NAICS codes, 5 major NAICS codes, meaning 5 domains, not what you submit to them. They're going to go and check all the CPARs for the 5 domains during the past 3 years that you performed, and not more than 5% of your ratings must be above marginal. If you have more than 5% marginal, you don't have that gate criteria. They'll put aside your proposal. For small business, you need the secret facility clearance, you need the ISO 9001, you need the CMMC level 2 self. So this is a self. This is not the finalized one. This is self-scored, not scored, self-certified. And then you need this, obviously, your small business certification, what type of small business you are, and documentation for that. And then for CPARs, you must not have 5 or more marginal ratings in the contracts that you have performed during the past 3 years for all 5 domains based on the NAICS codes for the domains. So they're going to check all the contracts you have performed during the past 3 years for those domains, and you must not have more than 5 marginal. Commercial vendors, it's more relaxed, so you only need the CMMC level 2 self-certification plus commercial sector vendors confirmation, and obviously SAM.gov registration. They have specified this because companies might be new to federal contracting and not be registered. Obviously, it's an assumed thing for large businesses and small businesses, so I didn't mention those. Okay, so these are the gate criteria. Now, one thing I want to mention is that especially for CMMC level 2 self-certification, if you don't have that, you have between 3 months to 4 months. So if you're just missing that, you have everything else, whether you're large or small, this is the time that you can actually push for it and get it. You will eventually need it to participate in all the other DOW contracts. So you might as well go for it now, and you have between 3 to 4 months to get it. And it is possible if you move fast on that. Okay, so let's move on. Let's go into the proposal scoring system. So the main time in this webinar will be spent on this. So if you look at the scoring system at the bottom, these are the numbers. Now, some of them might be a few points here and there mistaken. There are discrepancies in the forms that they have sent. For example, under small business, you see I have put in 2 red ones. The vacancy rate is 30,000 and time to fill rate is 21,000, but they are not on the form. I'm just assuming that they missed it. That's why I've put them there. But that's essentially the point. So there are 2 main factors. One is called systems, agreements, certifications. 10,000 for large business, 12,000 for small business. And then commercial vendors score is 6,000. And then the second main score factor is past performance, meaning 3 contracts, or QPs we call them. The score you get for 3 QPs or 3 contracts. That's 102,000 for all. So it's the same for all systems, whether small business or large or commercial vendor. 102,000. And I've listed the sub factors here. I'm going to go into details of all of these so you can understand how they work. But this is essentially the scoring systems. And you want to be up there around the 100,000 to make sure that you can actually get it. Now, I did mention 3 QPs. So you have to pick 3 contracts that will give you the highest score based on these 7 areas: recency, relevance, NAICS alignment, performance quality, dollar value, vacancy rate, and time to fill rate. I will go through these, but essentially you need 3 contracts or QPs to realize these points. Okay. Now, just to compare them, you can see that vacancy rate by itself, 30,000 points, is the most important one. And after that comes performance quality, 21,000, and time to fill, 21,000. So these 3 are the most important one. You should focus on those. The orange ones are the systems and certifications, and they're different for unrestricted, small business, and commercial. And you can see that they are much smaller than the 3 QPs that create those blue bars, which is the main score. Now, why do I say these are more important, vacancy and performance quality? Because you need to pick 3 QPs, 3 contracts. So the fact that a contract, for example, misses NAICS alignment or doesn't have a large value, so misses the dollar value, which is 9,000 points, that should not, upset you, so to say, because the main factors are those three: vacancy rate, performance quality, time to fill. So maybe you pick a contract that gets very low points on the others, but gets very high on the first three. Then you're a winner. So you want to balance, obviously, but do remember that these are the most important sub-factors that we should look for and concentrate on. Okay. Now let's go into each of these. So let's start with the systems, rates, and certifications. Again, since these are different for large business, small business, and commercial, for the commercial ones, I've put three different columns for them. But essentially, one is 10,000, one is 12,000, and one is 6,000. And here you can see how the score is built up. For example, approved purchasing system is a gate criteria for large business, so you don't get any points for it. But it's not a gate criteria for small business. But if you have it, you get 1,000 extra points. And so on and so forth like this. You can look at this later on. I will not go into details of this. Okay, so that was the systems and certifications. Now for past performance, which has 7 different sub-factors, they are exactly the same for the 3 different types of tracks, as you can say. Commercial vendors, small business, and large businesses, they're exactly the same. So I've not put in different columns for them. So let's start with recency. So for each QP, each contract, if the POP end date is within the past 2 years, or 2 years of the full RFP dropping issuance. We don't know when that is, but when that drops, if you have a contract that the end date is a completed contract, the end date is within the past 2 years, or you have a ongoing contract with one full with a full performance within the past year, so then you get 1,000 points. That's per QP. So this table is per QP or per contract. So you get 1,000 points per contract if within the past 2 years completed, or it's ongoing and it is ongoing right now with one full past year full performance. Relevance means that you get 5,000 points if 100% of technical capabilities are covered. I'm going to list what technical capabilities are. These are different for different domains, and the way you calculate them is different. But just remember the scoring is like this. So you get 5,000 points if all technical capabilities are covered. You get 3,000 points if between 75% to 99% of TCs or technical capabilities are covered. 2,000 for 50 to 74%, 1,000 points for 25 to 49%, and below 25% you don't get any points. So 5,000 if you cover all the technical capabilities per QP, per contract. For each QP, the third requirement or third sub-factor is NAICS alignment. For each QP, if the NAICS aligns with the proposed domain, we earn 1,000 additional points. Now you might say, so what is the relevance in terms of, you're supposed to have the same NAICS code, obviously. Well, they have allowed you to use a contract with the NAICS codes that are acceptable for any of the 5 domains. So maybe you're submitting a contract for the for the technical and engineering, but the NAICS code is for R&D. That's fine. It's acceptable. That contract, that QP is acceptable. But you get an extra 1,000 points if the NAICS code is directly, for example, since you're going for TNE, is directly, one of the NAICS codes acceptable by TNE. Okay, so that was NAICS alignment, 1,000 points per contract again. Performance quality. So here they want to see your CPAR's ratings. So if all the CPAR ratings, we are talking about one contract, so one CPAR evaluation. If all the ratings are exceptional, you get 7,000 points. If there are a mix of very good and exceptional, so you have at least one very good, you get 5,000 points. If there is a mix of satisfactory and higher, so you have satisfactory but maybe everything else is exceptional, you still get 3,000 because you have one satisfactory. And then if you have a neutral rating, you get 1,000 points. Below that, so below satisfactory, you don't get anything, any points. So maximum is 7,000 points per QP. Okay, so fifth subfactor is dollar value. So you get 3,000 points if the value of the contract of that QP is $50 million. Don't mistake this with or above. Don't mistake this with Oasis Plus or others who calculate annual value. This is the total contract value. So the total contract value, if it's more than $50 million, you get 3,000 points. If it's between 25 million and 50 million, you get 2,000 points. And if it's above $25 million, you get, if it's below $25 million, obviously more than 2.5 million, which is the minimum requirement, you get 1,000 points. So these are the points for dollar value. You can see that it's 3,000 points maximum per QP. So compared with the others, it's smaller. So that's when I said, you don't look for large contracts necessarily. Sometimes very small contracts, just 2.5 or $3 million will give you twice the points from the other score factors. Okay, let's look at vacancy rate then. So vacancy rate for each QP, if the vacancy rate is 0%, you get 10,000 points. If the vacancy rate, and I'll explain what vacancy rate is, it means that within the past year, if you have filled all the vacancies, there's a formula, I will not go into details, but if you have filled all the vacancies, you get 10,000 points. If you're missing any, so you started with, say, 50 people, but you're now at 48, so you're missing 2, you calculate it. If it's between 1% to 4.9%, you get 7,000 points. If missing is 5% to 8.99%, a little bit less than 9%, you get 4,000 points. If missing is 9% to 11.99, 2,000 points. 12% to below 15%, 1,000 points. And anything 15% or more. So you started with 50 people and now you have 10. Okay, you don't get any points for that. So that's how it works. 10,000 if you have started with 50, maybe a few dropped out, but you actually filled in those and you're still at 50. You're good to go, you get 10,000. The last subfactor is time to fill rate. So if the fill rate is 30 days or less, you get 7,000 points. So you have to show that provide documents to prove that if a employee dropped out and you filled it up, the vacancy within 30 days, you get 7,000 points. Between 31 to 45 days, 5,000 points. 46 to 50, 3,000 points. 51 to 62 months, 2,000 points. 61 days to 74 days, 1,000 points. And 45 days, that's 75 days or more. That's not 75 days or more, you get no points. So the maximum is 7,000 points if you actually filled that vacancy within 30 days. So the overall per QP, so for each of the QPs, you get 34,000 if you get maximum score. Multiply that by 3 because you're allowed 3 contracts and you get 102,000. Remember, you cannot use different contracts for each of these. You have to pick 3 contracts and then see how they fare with regards to these 7 subfactors. Okay, so that was the scoring system. Now, let's also discuss the QP minimum requirements, the 3 contracts that you bring to the table. So obviously there are 3 qualifying projects. Contracts can be single standalone contracts or task orders under multiple or single award IDIQs and BPAs, or FSS, BOA, or OTA, other transaction authority contracts. Contracts can be federal, state and local, or commercial. This is important. Federal, state and local, or commercial, but you must be prime on them. So you can't use subcontractors' contract. Value. The value of each contract must be above $2.5 million. Okay, so that's the minimum value. This is total value of the contract must be above $2.5 million. They have not gone into the details of, what is the difference between an ongoing contract, for example, whether you have to look at what has been paid to you or not, compared to a finished contract. But my guess is that you're supposed to look at, like Oasis Plus and others I've seen, you look at what's on the contract document for ongoing contracts. So if it's a $10 million contract and you're in the first year or second year, you've received only $1 million, it's still $10 million, not $1 million. Recency completed within the past 4 years and with 1 year of performance. Okay, so you don't get any points for it. This is the minimum requirement. Otherwise, that QP cannot be used. Remember, we said if it was completed within the past 2 years, you would get 1,000 points. But here, this is the minimum requirement. So the completion date, doesn't matter when it started, must be within the past 4 years from the RFP release, the full RFP release, which has not been released yet. And it must have 1 year of performance. So it can be ongoing, but it must have 1 year of performance. Now, relevance, NAICS for the contract must be one of the approved NAICS. I will show you in the next slide. And then CPARs, if they don't exist for each of those 3 QPs that you have, then you need to fill out the attachment 6 PPQ. They don't exist sometimes for federal contracts, and they don't exist obviously for state and local, and obviously for commercial. So you have to get that attachment 6 filled out by the owner, contracting officer, whoever of the contract, and signed and sent back to you, and you put it as part of the proposal. Okay. Let's look at the score factor relevance, because we discussed this, and I promised that I would explain how it worked. Remember that there were percentages for each of the technical capabilities. If you had 100% of the technical capabilities, you would get 5,000 points. If you had less, you would get less points. So how do you calculate? How do you know what technical capabilities and how to calculate? So for each domain, the technical capabilities are different. So for example, for the technical services domain, there are 7 of them: engineering services, logistics services, manufacturing, medical logistics, technology insertion, integration, and interoperability. Now that percentage that you see is 14.29%, meaning that if the SAO of the QP that you have at hand has any of these, you get 14.29% for each. And then you add them up to find out what your maximum score is. Obviously, if you have all of them, you get 100%. If you have less, you get less points. I will do an exercise on this so you can see how it works. So these are the technical capabilities and the percentage for technical services. Next is management and advisory services. It has 7 areas again: acquisition and strategic planning, financial services, training services, education services, program management, quality assurance, risk management. And here 14.29% again for each of these TCs. For RDT&E services, there are 6 areas. So the percentage is 16.67 for each: basic research, applied research, experimental development research, modeling and simulation, prototyping and fabrication support, and exploratory research. Now for emerging IT services domain, the TCs are 10, but for that reason, each of them score 10%. So 10 times 10, you get 100%. I won't read off everything. So here are the 10 areas, 10 technical capability areas under emerging IT services domain. And then the last domain is foundation IT. It has 6 things like help desk, IT education, and so on and so forth. And here, because it's 6, it's 16.67% for each. Now, how do you do that? Let's do an exercise here. So assume that we have a QP contract, and it's for, say, the 5th domain, foundation IT services. So here, each of these scores 16.67, these 6 different areas. Now, my QP has help desk support, so I put a plus there. It has IT education and training in the scope, and it has IT management services in the scope, and it has IT services in the scope. So for those, I put a plus, meaning that I deserve the 16.67% for each. Now, when you sum those 16.67%, you arrive at 66.68 at the bottom. You can see 66.68%. That's the score I get for this domain, for this QP. Now, to the right, you can see the scoring. I have put it there so you remember it. So if you get 100%, you get 5,000 points. Between 75 to 99%, you get 3,000 points. Between 50 to 74 and 99, you get 2,000 points. Now, our number is 66.68. It falls within the third one, between the 50 and 74. So I receive 2,000 points and not 3,000 points, which is a mistake. Okay, so in this example, you receive 2,000 points because you had 66.68, and that falls within the range of 50 to 74%. That's how you calculate, what score you get for your TC, technical capability coverage, for any of the domains you're going after. Okay, another point about NAICS alignment I wanted to cover. So each domain has its main NAICS code. So technical services 541330, management advisory 541611, RDT&E services 541715, emerging IT services 541512, and foundation IT services 541519. Now, in addition to these, remember I said that the QPs, the NAICS code for the QPs must align. Now, the QPs that you bring to the table, they can align with any of the 5, plus some based on the domain. So, for example, for technical services, any of the 5 main NAICS codes, main domain NAICS codes, plus 541614 and 541712. And similar to this for the other domains. So if you have contracts that has, you're going for technical services, but your contracts NAICS code is 541715 RDT&E services, or it's 541513. All of these are 512, 541614. Then it's acceptable. So what's written under acceptable NAICS per domain, you can use any of those, and that QP will be accepted. So that's how you actually do that. Let me also touch on the issue of proposal documentation. I've seen a lot of questions on those. So what are you supposed to submit? Attachment 0001, cover letter, obviously form. It's a form. Attachment 2, self-scoring scorecard, sorry. And if you're going for multiple domains, you have to submit multiple scorecards. Okay, one for each, because obviously there are different scores for each. Attachment 3, systems, agreements, and certifications. Plus, with the same attachment, you attach to it all the supporting documentation to that. Then up to 15, attachment 4, qualifying project or QPs. Why 15? Because you're allowed 3 QPs per domain. If you're going for all 5 domains, maximum is 15. So you use that 004 qualifying project form, fill out the information, and attach the SAO or the PWS of each QP to that form. Now, attachment 0006 PPQ, remember I said you use that if a CPAR does not exist. You need to submit that with those QP forms as well. So attach the PPQs to the QP forms and submit. Remember that if the CPARs exist, you do not need to submit it. The government will go and find it from its own database. Only if CPARs does not exist and you're using a PPQ, you attach that to attachment 4 QP4. And then we have the attachment 5 price, which they have not explained how to do it. And then finally, small business subcontracting plan, which is a written plan, is required only for small businesses. Now, 2 notes, each volume must be one single document in PDF format. So attach everything to each other per volume. Make sure your submission documents are not larger than 5 megabyte per domain. This is the requirement I've put in. I've seen some people saying that's too small, but we'll see. Okay, now let's discuss the source selection process. So essentially there are 4 steps. Step 1, gate review, and then ranking, and then that's step 1. Step 2 is verification and review. Step 3 is preliminary award, and step 4 is final awards. So in step 1, essentially what they do is first they check the gate criteria, put aside anyone who doesn't have the gate criteria documentation or essentially doesn't have it at all. Then they will rank the proposals based on the self-scoring that we have done, and they will do this. So for each domain, they will rank the top 15 unrestricted large businesses, the top 25 small businesses, and the top 10 commercial vendors proposals. And then they start checking and determining whether they really earned those points that they have claimed. So they check the documentation and everything to make sure that the claims are correct. If there's any down adjustment is needed, that's done. Perhaps the 50th company drops to 51st and they pick the 51st and bring it back, that sort of thing. Once that's done, then they go into step 3, preliminary awards. So they want to do responsibility checks and things like that in this stage. And finally, in step 4 is the final awards, 50 per domain. Again, 15 large, 25 small, and 10 commercial vendors. Now they have explained that maybe for this domain, there are not enough large businesses or there are not enough small businesses, things like that. They have actually spelled out how they're going to go do that. Everything essentially pours into the small business side. So if there are not enough 15 large businesses, more small businesses are picked. If there are not enough commercial vendors, those 10 more small businesses are picked, and those small businesses first goes to the socioeconomic and then the rest. Okay, so that's the source selection process. Let's move forward. Let's touch on partnering. I've seen quite a few questions on that. So the draft RFP specifically mentions that companies, meaning offerors, cannot use a QP from their teaming partner, meaning their subcontractor. Okay, you might have a subcontract, that's fine, but you cannot use their QP, their contract, and obviously not, their systems and certifications. Now, JVs can participate in the name of JV, but a company can only bid as a single entity or JV or mentor-protege JV within any given domain. So you cannot do both. So you can't be part of a JV and then submit your own proposal separately. That's not allowed. So essentially, the way sections L and M are set up, it's doubtful that partnering, meaning prime-sub relationship, can be advantageous in getting an award, at least the IDIQ side. Although subcontracting on future task orders is a possibility that the RFP is supposed to clarify on later on. Okay, so that was partnering. So a few recommendations I have. First, the go, no-go, and gap analysis. Do a full go, no-go, and gap analysis right now with emphasis on the gate criteria, because there's no point in continuing on if you don't have the minimum gate criteria requirements. Now, at the same time, even if you don't have one of the gate requirements like CMMC, use the remaining 3 to 4 months of slack time to actually strengthen your posture on certifications and get those and get past the gate criteria. So either you don't have the gate criteria, try to see if you can get your CMMC certified during this 3 to 4 months, or try to actually increase your score later on by getting more certifications. Perhaps you have some pending ones that you can put pressure on the companies to, or the government to actually provide you with those certifications. Now, general notes, start choosing your 3 QPs for each domain yesterday. Why? You really have to review each and every contract you have performed during the past 4 years that fall within one of the acceptable NAICS codes and is larger than $2.5 million, to find out which 3 give you the highest score. And this is a time-consuming job to do, so you really need to start as soon as possible. We call this profiling. That is independently scoring each contract based on the 7 score criteria that I mentioned. Those were recency, relevancy, NAICS alignment, dollar value, performance quality, vacancy rate, and time to fill rate. So you need to sit down and score each and every contract you have performed within the past 4 years that is above $2.5 million and has the proper NAICS code. Now, this is a huge task for large businesses, or if you're a small business but have a large number of contracts, because usually when you have large number of contracts, you have to really sit down, read the SAO or the PWS of each of them, see how it maps to those TCs that I mentioned, look at the vacancy rate, time to fill rate. Many times these are spread out. The HR has part of it, the program manager has another part of it. So it's a time-consuming job. You really need to start as soon as possible. And as I mentioned, you saw that a QP with a contract value larger than, for example, $50 million gets 3,000 points, whereas a contract that has 0 vacancy gets 10,000 points. So you can't focus on just one of these. You have to juggle around, get all the score for all contracts, and then find out which 3 will get you the highest score. And then don't be shy on using your state and local or commercial contracts if they abide to the requirements. Obviously, you need to be prime on them. There's no difference. So if you have a good state and local contract that is above $2.5 million and many of the other requirements, by all means use it. There's no difference. The government does not differentiate between them. Remember, you have to be prime on them. And then get your proposal reviewed by a second set of eyes to ensure compliance with the requirements. In these self-scoring proposals, usually a lot of companies miss a lot of small details. That's why compliance reviews are really important. When we do it, for example, for Oasis, we do 2 rounds of full compliance review after we have prepared the proposal. Obviously, we do a lot of compliance reviews within the process of preparing the proposal, but we always do 2 rounds at the end as well. And here you also need to do that or get somebody to do it for you. Okay, so as far as the services, I want to repeat again. So we provide free consultation. Please contact me or my colleague Moron. I'll show you the contact detail in a minute. Capture management we provide for MAPS. So we can actually help you with regards to eligibility, because they fall under capture management, eligibility and gap analysis and that sort of thing. And then once you decide to go after it, we can provide full proposal development with a dedicated proposal team, or provide reviewing services if you're doing it in-house. Okay, and here are my contact email and phone number, contact information, as well as my colleague, Maroon Freedy. If you have any technical questions, please email me. If you have any sales inquiries or you need to set up a consultation call so we can jump on it and answer any questions that you might have. Remember, I said free. Please contact Maroon by email. And once you download this presentation slide deck, or I send it to you, if you put your name on it, you can have this available. Okay, so we've reached the Q&A, and we can answer some questions then. Actually, before starting with the questions, let me also say that we have a group on LinkedIn dedicated to MAPS. I recommend that you join it if you are active on LinkedIn to stay up to date. Now, Cal will post the link on the chat system in a minute, and you can use that link. Okay, question from Bob. You didn't discuss the price volume. Right, so they have not issued information on that yet, and we will probably see that either in the next draft or the final RFP how they're going to actually go for it. They have sort of alluded to the fact that they want pricing for project management LCATs, but it's just not very clear yet. Question from Steve. You said that if our CMMC is in process, they will accept it. What is this process? Okay, so for the gate criteria, if you provide documentation of CMMC level 2 self certification, like a screenshot of your supplier performance risk system, that is enough for the gate criteria. The process is essentially a formal, so to say, grade your own homework exercise, and that gets logged into the government's database. As you know, CMMC level 2 is based entirely on the NIST SP 800-171. So there are 110 security controls you must implement in your company and then self-certify yourself. Of course, this implementation and understanding the requirements is not that clear, it's not that clear-cut. It's not a checklist that you just take. This is why there are companies now who are actually helping contractors on this. I recommend that you actually approach that. You can contact me if you need further information. I can refer you to them. Question from Jerry. Can we use the same contract or QP in different domains? Yes, you can. You can use the same contract in different domains. Obviously, it has to have the proper NAICS codes. Question from John. You mentioned that the domain submission document cannot be larger than 5 meg. If we are supposed to attach the SAOs, sometimes they are very heavy. That's correct. That should be one of the questions directed to the government to come up with a resolution. Perhaps increasing this 5 meg limit or accepting partial SAOs or PWSs, whatever. We'll have to see. Question from Joe. What are the requirements for JVs and MPJVs? So they've not clearly spelled out and have promised that they will cover this in the next upcoming draft or the full RFP. Question from Sam. Please explain what is the difference between QPs and TCs. I got confused. No problem. So for each domain submission, you need to provide 3 contracts. These are called the qualifying projects or QPs. So QPs are the contracts. Now, under each domain's scope, the scope of work, there are a number of areas that are called technical capabilities or TCs. These are, sub areas under the scope of that domain. What you have to do is to map your contract, the SAO, through the SAO and the PWS, to those TCs, to those technical capabilities of the domain you're going to go after. And this way you get the points. If you cover all the TCs, for example, in a domain, you get 5,000 points in that contract. Okay, question from Angela. The way you explain the process that the feds are going to go through is that even if they receive 1,000 proposals, they will only review 50 per domain. Is my understanding correct? Yes, that is correct. And that is the beauty of self-scoring proposals as far as the government is concerned, because they just check the number that they want to award. So if they want to award 250 Even though they receive 1,000 proposals, they will check only 250, the first top 250, 50 per domain. Now maybe, you know, there's a few ups and downs, so they pick the 51st and 52nd, but essentially they're never going to check those 1,000 proposals. So it's something around 250, depending on, you know, how many they want to award. Question from Amanda. Explain again what you mean by profiling our contracts. It means that you score each contract, each of your contracts, independently based on those 7 score items we discussed: recency, relevancy, and so on and so forth. So you put a score for each of those for each contract, sum up, you know, sum the total for that particular contract you have, compare it with your other contracts, pick the top 3 highest scoring ones. Question from Sandra. Did you say we don't have to send our CPARs with our proposal? Right. If you have a CPAR for a QP for a contract, you don't send it. The government will refer to their database and look it up. But if you have a PPQ in absence of CPAR for federal contracts, or if you're using a state and local or commercial contract, you need to have that PPQ form, attachment 6. Then you include that in your proposal. Question from Tom. In the GATE criteria, you mentioned 5% for large businesses on CPAR, but number 5 for small businesses. Is this correct? Or they are both 5%? No, that was correct. So for any reason, 5% is for large businesses. Number 5 is for small businesses. That's how they have set it up. Okay, we are out of time, but I'm seeing a lot of remaining questions. Okay, so for these, I will reach out by email to everyone whose questions I have not responded to, and I apologize for that. So expect my response to these questions by email, app.van@gdicwins.com. Thank you again, everyone, for participating in our webinar, and we look forward to seeing you in our future webinars. Thank you and have a wonderful day.